Greetings, everybody, and welcome here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So, we're back for the month of September's series, which is The Other Prog War. So, what is that? Okay, so we did an original, The Great Prog War, in which we had mostly all of the well-known progressive rock bands, the ones that are big, the ones that are second tier, the ones that everybody knows about. These are the more obscure ones. These are the ones, for whatever reason, they didn't quite make it to that upper echelon. They weren't as noticeable, and generally speaking, most of these are not known to the average person who listens to music. These are more for people like us here on YouTube who absolutely love our progressive rock and are just constantly looking for new stuff to look for. These bands will appeal to those people. That's what I'm here for. That's why I do this, because that's the kind of people that are like me, always looking for that new thing to listen to. So anyways, the series is for the entire month. We're doing 32 bands, and what we're doing is I'm not doing it. Ben's done it. He's taken the 32 bands and put them in combat against each other. And my job is to listen to the albums, decide which one I like better, and then that one will go on. But it's not just about that, obviously. It's a chance. It forces me to listen to some bands that, I probably would put off because I got other stuff I want to listen to. But it forces me to listen to them, and I've discovered quite a few bands here that I like a lot, more so than any other battle that we've done so far. There's a lot of stuff in here that I had no idea how good these bands were. Okay, so that's the purpose. So I do apologize for this coming out late today. I had another computer I was checking out this morning, this one, and was thinking I might use it for making some videos, but the audio is okay and the video is okay, but I just think this computer is vastly superior. It's an MSI. It's really good sound on it, and so I want to stick with this. It does take a little bit longer to make videos, but overall I still like it quite a bit. So anyways, we're going to be using this today, and that's the reason why we're going to be late, because I was testing the other one. So the bands we're doing today, we have two. I'm going to put my glasses on now so I can check my notes once in a while when needed to be. So today's two combatants are Stefan Zauner and his album Narciss, and the other one we're going to do is FM's Black Noise. So Stefan Zauner is a German krautrock band. Oh, well, he is. That's what he plays in. It's a progressive kind of krautrock on Areola label. Album was released in 1976. Very good album, I thought. Kind of falls in the same range as that Green Slade and Ganindro. Well, I can never remember how to say that name. Anyways, falls within that class. Also, it does have some sound that reminds me of Caravan as well. So all these bands are kind of similar. They kind of sound like some of the Canterbury bands there. And he falls within that range, except for everything is in German here. There's no English. It's all in German. His vocals are not bad. Certainly better than Frank's are and Eloy, but sorry, Frank, nothing against you. You're a fantastic musician. The vocals are sometimes humorous for me. So anyways, Stefan Zauner here on Narciss. He's a keyboardist, I believe. I did do some very basic research. I tend not to do much research on the bands before I listen to them, because I just want to listen to the music and not be put off by who did it or what they did and all that. I just want to listen to the music and try to give it an honest, uncensored listen to, if you want. Yeah, so he's got kind of it's his vocals are also obviously in German, and he has a German accent, and they're mid-range vocals, so they're not high soprano or bass. They're kind of in the tenor range, and they're not bad. They're pretty strong. I do like to understand what they're saying, but I understand that I'd have to listen to this quite a bit and then do some research to find out what he's talking about, and that takes time. And I don't have time for that for this video, so we're just going to go with what he's talked about or what he sang about. Anyways, the music is it's got a bit of a pastoral sound to it, very kind of laid back, very reminiscent of those bands I said. Definitely not out of range. Maybe a little bit more keyboards on this than some of the other bands, but overall pretty solid. He does use the acoustic guitar quite a bit, or I don't know if it's him or whoever's playing the acoustic guitar. Quite a bit of it on this album, which is good. It really adds to that pastoral sound. Yeah, I think he uses quite a bit of different keyboard sounds here too. I do hear some Hammond organ on occasion and some other organ. I'm not sure what the other organ is. A little bit of mellotron here. Piano, of course. What else? Just ordinary keyboard parts as well. And he does use some synthesizers as well, but I don't think he's overly dominating in his synthesizer parts. He uses them what I would call atmospherically, so they create a kind of, so you don't hear those hollow inflections of areas where there's no noise. He kind of uses it to cover that. It also adds some depth to the music as well, but I don't think it's not overindulgent. I don't find it's distracting in the least. Very useful tool if used correctly. It's definitely symphonic prog. It does have a computer sense to it. It's not overly, but it definitely falls within that range. But it's more of a poppy kind of music. I wouldn't call this progressive metal or anything like that. It's definitely in the pop range. Not as heavy as even Genesis or even get Indro Rod. That was one I was trying to think of. Not even as bad as that. So he does like to use some sound effects. This is something that Floyd does very well. He does use them quite a bit to create an atmosphere for a song. And in the last track on this album, which is the one that I remember the best, he uses a fair bit of piano, which I think is very tastefully done. This is a strong album. I don't think the clarity of it is as good as I would like it to be, but mind you, it's 1976, and very few bands had really clear sounding albums then. Well, there were some, Crime of the Century, of course, and Dark Side of the Moon in that era were very clear, but this one not as clear. But I wouldn't say it qualifies as murky either. I think it's somewhere between those two, maybe more closer to the clear sound, and the production is pretty good. Vocals are, like I said, pretty mid-range, but not bad sounding. So overall, a pretty interesting album with a lot of things on it that are worth listening to. Things you'll probably hear more things as you listen to it more times as well. So if you like that kind of stuff, which I do, where you're listening and you hear something you didn't hear before, and you know that every time you listen to that album, you're going to hear stuff that you haven't heard before, you'll like this album. So on to the second album. Canadian band FM album Black Noise. This is well known in Canada and pretty much well known in the prog community. Released the year after Stefan Zauner's album in 1977. This was released at CBC Records. What else? This is the band. Just wanted to make a note. This is the band that Nash the Slash came from. Yeah, I know it's Kind of hard to believe, but it's the truth. I swear on my mother's grave. Oh, she's still alive. I shouldn't have said that. Take that back. Okay, so I would say this is very up-tempo compared to Stefan Zauner's album. Much faster pace. This to me is this is one of the, I know this album takes a little bit of heat, but to be honest with you, this album mixes the two genres that some people have a hard time making the connection with, which is the progressive movement with the new wave movement. This really mixes those two elements very well. I might add it does like an almost incredible job to put the two genres together so that you get you could be a person who likes one or the other and like them both. Now there are lots of new wave kind of people that are probably progressive rock artists at heart, but because progressive rock was dead at this period of time when new wave came, they embraced the new wave movement and used some of the progressive elements in that so that they could continue to do what they want, but in a different manner. And so to me, the difference was that the computers and the synthesizers kind of took over prog and became very dominant at that point. And some people do it well, some people not as well. I think FM has done it very well here. So the opening track, of course, is well known, very catchy, upbeat, some very good keyboard parts on this. The vocals are strong, and the use of the synths, it brings an edge to the overall sound of this music. This song, really catchy beats, and it's called Phasers on Stun. It's very well known. I don't think you could hear it without knowing what it is. The second track, 1 O'Clock Tomorrow, which is what it's called, got some nice keyboard mixes here, and of course again some accompanying synthesizers, which are well done. The vocals are clear, and I will say this I'm not going to repeat it anymore in the album, but I find the vocals are absolutely appropriate for the song ranges here. So the voice you would hope to hear with the music you're hearing, you're going to hear on this. So really, really good that way. It's a very clear sounding, great production, excellent album. The drums and bass are actually quite strong on this. Initially, I didn't think so, but as the album went along, you'll hear more drums, and the more you hear the drums and the bass, very prominent and very catchy rhythmic section. The next song is called Hours. It's an instrumental, just a short instrumental, really catchy with a great rhythm and some great keyboard parts on this track. Journey is the next track up, fast-paced, great keyboard parts, woven with the rhythm section, really well done, and the vocals again smooth and appropriate for the music. Dialing for Dharma, I guess that's what it is. Dialing for Dharma. Dharma, if I'm not incorrect, is a form of Eastern religion, or Dharma is the leader of one of the Eastern religions. It could be Confucianism, or it could be Buddhism. I'm not sure which one, but I think that's what it is. It's got some interesting keyboard sounds to it. A lot of rhythmic, catchy, upbeat background sounds as well. There's some other songs, 2 or 3 other tracks here, and the funny part is that this is in the early 70s or mid 70s, I guess, 77, mid to late 70s, we'll say. And you get a lot of that computer sound here, which I think wasn't that dominant until the 80s. So this album, to me, this album's a little bit ahead of its time. Actually doesn't sound too out of place in the modern era. Really great sounding album. Heavy drums and bass on some of the later tracks, and there's some hints of electric violin throughout this, which of course is Nash the Slash. I don't know if he was as dominant with this group before he went on his own, but this album, I don't notice him as much because I think the keyboards are very dominant here. The last track on the album, I'm just going to turn the page because I made a special note about this track because I think it was a track that surprised me. It's called Black Noise. Some heavy drums on here, synthetic sounding drums actually. Lots of percussion parts here. This was the part that I liked. A little bit of chimes, a little bit of different blocky instruments, all kinds of stuff here, which is kind of interesting. And they're not too forward either. They kind of got to listen for them, which was interesting. I like that. The vocals, again, very appropriate for the sound. Heavy but catchy beats. The solo was somewhat eerie. I found it a little bit eerie. I think it's a keyboard solo. And it ends with some very frontal bass parts, like really strong, heavy bass, heaviest on the album. Yeah, really, overall, I found this album to be a lot of interesting stuff to hear, a lot of unique keyboard sounds and synthesizer sounds, especially for that period of time. The vocals were strong and I thought really well done and very appropriate for the sound of the music. It was exactly what you would want to hear, and just a real catchy album. It's an album that you're going to want to listen to more than just once automatically. I found this very an intriguing album. So I mean, it's pretty obvious which one of these two albums is going to win. I did like Stefan Zauner's album, but I think he just came up against the superior album today. So his album I liked. I thought it was good. This album I love. I think it's great. And so FM's Black Noise will go on to the next round. And I think it'll be a highly competitive album for this tournament. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please hit the subscribe button. Much appreciated. Any comments about either of the two albums or anything that you're hearing or want to talk about, just put them in the comment section below. I try to answer them daily if I can. Most of the time I answer if it's something that needs answering. If it doesn't need answering, I'll at least acknowledge that I read it by putting a like on there. But I try to answer anything as best I can. And just remember, we're in this journey together. I'm just a guy who's trying to discover more and more music and discover what he really likes the most, and this is what I like. So I hope you enjoyed it. Have yourself a good day and take care. Bye.